Okay, so I'm back again, ASAC, and today we're going to do a video on things you should know before going to learn to fly in the real world. Things that I wish someone had told me, because a lot of the flight sim users eventually go on to flying real planes. I'm going to start by saying if you like what you see, hit like and subscribe, and then leave a comment to let me know what you want to see, and I'll do some videos for you. So, alright, basically, I'm gonna fly what I did for the first leg of my qualifying cross country, which is part of the private pilot's license course, but we'll go over that a bit later. This is the Cessna 172, and it's not the aircraft that I'd used at the time, but I used the 152. This is a bit bigger, it's 4 seats, and cruises a little bit faster. But I'm just going to do the flight in the background so you've got something nice to look at. So basically, when you're going to, or if you're thinking about learning to fly, then don't let any disabilities put you off. If you think that you might not be able to fly because of a disability, then check it out, have a look, because even if you can't drive a car, you still might be able to fly a plane. There is a company in the UK called Airability that specialises in training people to fly who have disabilities, and they cover all sorts of things. I'm not sure exactly what, but they do cover quite a lot, so it's worth checking them out if you're worried about it. Also, I'm just going to point out that this video is UK based rules, and it's probably quite a lot different in other countries. So really the first thing you need to do when you're considering learning to fly is decide where you want to go with it. If you're there are 4 main different types of licenses. You just need to decide what you want to do with it. If you want to just go flying with family and friends, or do you want to get paid for flying? So then we'll go over some costs as well. The first license is the LAPL, the LAPL, that's the Light Aircraft Pilot's License, and that is basically it's the most restrictive one. You only have to do a minimum of 35 hours, but bear in mind that is a minimum. It might take you a bit longer depending on how you learn and how quickly you pick it up. It's the most it's quite appealing to a lot of people because of the low time requirement, but it is for light aircraft, so you have a restriction of 2,000 kilograms maximum weight, so that is include the aircraft, the fuel, and the passengers. You're allowed to carry up to 3 passengers. Just bear in mind that if you have 3 passengers plus yourself plus a full tank of fuel, chances are you're going to be over 2,000 kilograms, so you're not going to meet the requirements. Also, it's restrictive in the fact that you cannot add ratings. It is strictly daytime, good weather flying only. You have to have good visibility. It's a VFR license, so VFR is Visual Flight Rules. You have a certain restrictions as to the distance that you're allowed to be able to see out the front of the aircraft, the sides and vertically, and you have to be in sight of the surface enough to navigate. So if you have overcast clouds, say at 3,000 feet, you can't go and fly at 4,000 feet because you can't see the ground to navigate. So that's the Light Aircraft Pilot's License. Next you have the Private Pilot's License, which is less restrictive. It's a minimum time requirement of 45 hours, and it is probably the most popular one for leisure, really.
Controlled airspace 3,300 feet above.
It's also very beneficial if you work in business, if you want to fly to business meetings, or if you work far away, it might be handy for you. The good thing with the private pilot's license is you can add ratings. So again, it starts as the basic good weather daytime flying only, but you can add the rating for
Controlled
multi-engine,
airspace 2,700 feet above.
so twin engine rating, or you can sorry, let's get rid of that. Right, got the twin engine rating, or the night rating, or the IMC rating. Now the IMC rating is for poor weather, so even if it's poor visibility, you can fly even if you can't see out the window, because they teach you how to use your instruments and navigate using that, and find your way down to the runway using just your instruments. Again, the night rating might be something that's handy, so you don't have to worry about time. You can take off and come back home whenever you want. It's very popular for people hiring aircraft for leisure, because you're only really paying for the time that you're flying the plane. So if you hire the aircraft in the morning, fly an hour somewhere, land, and then fly an hour back at, say, maybe 3, 4, 5 o'clock at night, then you're only paying for the 2 hours. You might have had the plane all day, but you're only paying for 2 hours, so it's very good. I mean, the average price at the moment is, for aircraft hire, is from £140 and from £140 you get the aircraft hire that includes the fuel. If you need to buy fuel while you're out, the club will reimburse you for it, so it's pretty good. I'll go a bit more into detail with the PPL later, and then after that we'll go through the structure of how the lessons work. Okay, so then we are going to the CPL, that's the Commercial Pilot's License. And the Commercial Pilot's License allows you to get paid for flying. It's the only license, well, the PPL and the LAP, you can't get paid to fly. The CPL you can, and it used to be that you needed the Commercial Pilot's License to become an instructor as well, but now there's another way into it, but we won't even go into that because that's a new world of complicated. So, but yes, Commercial Pilot's License, you can get paid for it, and you can work for an airline. You can't carry fare-paying passengers, but you can work for DHL or FedEx or anyone like that. And then maybe even some skydivers you might be able to get away with, banner towing, advertising, anything like that. But because you are doing a lot more advanced training, you're going to be using different types of aircraft, and it will take you a lot longer to get that license, so it is going to cost a lot more. The average hourly cost for a private pilot's license lesson will be anywhere between £150 £180, depending on where you go, which aircraft you choose to fly, and things like that. Also, when you I'll do that later. The next one is the Airline Transport Pilot's License, that allows you to carry fare-paying passengers, so working for the airlines, for like British Airways, American Airlines, or whatever. So that is going all the way. That you will be paying a lot of money for it, but you'll get a lot of money back. So now that we've been over those, you also need to pick one and then decide which airfield is best for you to learn at. Like for me personally, I had a choice of 3 airfields: Derby, Taton Hill, or East Midlands Airport. Derby is a small grass airfield with multiple runways. Taton Hill is a small airfield, but it's got a long runway and it's tarmac, but there's only one. And then you've got East Midlands Airport, which is a domestic airport with airline flights coming in and out, long tarmac runway. You've got all the night lighting, you've got all the instrument approaches and everything you could want. But if you're only going for a PPL, you don't want all that. The thing to remember is if you're going from a busy airport, you're paying generally from brakes on to brakes off to brakes on, or maybe in some cases engine running time. But if you're booking an hour at a time, you might only get 40 minutes flying, because you could be sat behind traffic while waiting to take off. You've got longer distance to taxi, and yes, you have got all the extra bits added on to the larger airports, but you're spending less time actually in the air and therefore less time learning, and generally they're a little bit more expensive per hour anyway, so you're just paying to sit on the ground. But having said that, you have got the extra stuff like instrument approaches. You are talking to the big boys in the tower, and if you are going for the airline transport pilot's license or the commercial pilot's license, this might be a good way to go. It's up to you to decide that on your own. Taton Hill, it has got an NDB, which is a beacon that makes it easier for finding the airport. It has got night lighting, and it has got a tarmac runway. Now that, for me, is the one that I decided on in the end. I have taken lessons at all three, but I have chose that one in the end simply because it was a nice atmosphere. The tarmac runway meant that weather wasn't really, if it was raining, it wasn't that much of a problem. If I had a grass airfield, then they might consider cancelling the flight because of the slippery grass or getting stuck in the mud or anything like that. And then that takes me down to the other one, Derby Airfield, which is small grass airfield with multiple runways. And the fact that it's small and grass, even that's got its pros and cons. The fact that it's small means you're doing all your training from very short runways, so you know for a fact that if you've been doing that, you can land your plane anywhere. If you're doing all your lessons at East Midlands Airport, you've got like nearly a mile of runway there. If you can't land on there, then you need to look at yourself. But seriously, if you can land at a short airfield, you've got no problems. You've got a more confidence that you can land at pretty much any airfield with the the right specification of aircraft to the runway length. Also, it had multiple runways, which means that the wind isn't really too much of a factor. Yeah, it's always nice to land with the wind straight down the runway, but if you want to learn crosswind landings, if you're not comfortable with them and you want to do a lesson on them, ask the instructor and he will allow you to use a different runway, which won't be too far out of wind to make it uncomfortable, but it will give you enough of an angle to learn how to do the crosswind landing again, so you will be comfortable with that when you fly to another airfield. Length isn't an issue, the crosswind isn't an issue. That's another few things. One thing I will say is they don't have any instrument approaches or anything like that. It is a grass airfield, so in the summer when there's loads of farms and stuff around, it can be difficult to spot until you know the area, and there's no lighting, so when you have passed your license, you can't go hire an aircraft and return whenever you want. You have to be back before, I think it's 30 minutes after sunset is when they recommend, that's when the legal PPL finishes without the night rating, but I wouldn't try to find a grass airfield that late because it's hard enough in the day, especially if you don't really know the area. The whole world from the air looks completely different to how it would from the ground. So you sort of get a new perspective on things. But so that's that. You've picked your airfield. Now you need to decide on what type of aircraft you're going to fly. Now different airfields have different types of aircraft. You get 2-seaters, 4-seaters, high wing, low wing, different stuff like that, and obviously they come in various prices. Now I will always suggest that people go for the cheapest option, because when you're flying simple aircraft like this, they're not that different from each other. High wing and low wing handle a bit differently, but for example, we'll take the 152 and the 172. This is the 172. The 152 is pretty much the same thing, but with only 2 seats. So if you're paying less for the just because you've got 2 seats, you might as well do that, because once you have passed your test, it'll only take you another hour or so to get rated on a different type of aircraft, unless it's complex, and then you might take a few more hours. But rather than spending maybe £180 on this 4-seater, you could spend £165 on a 2-seater, and that money you've saved up has already paid for your extra lesson to get your rating on the other one. So, you know, it just makes sense to pay for the cheaper one while you're training, and then you've got all the basic skills there, and it doesn't take you long to learn a new aircraft. Also, I would suggest that when learning, using a high wing aircraft is probably easier, because when you get to your navigation stage in the PPL course, you will be using a map. You'll be taught how to plot a route on a map, and you'll be looking at certain points. Like, we've got a sort of city there, we've got roads here. We need to have a look at the map and watch where we are, because you still need to be able to use a map and navigate without any GPS or anything like that. So having a high wing will allow you to see the ground better. Having a low wing, you can be looking for something and the wing's in the way, you know, you may have missed something important. So that's that's the choosing the aircraft. Next, you need to choose the instructor. Now, don't be afraid to go through a few different instructors before you find one. You need to be able to get on with the instructor. You need to make sure you enjoy his teaching method, because I've had a number of instructors, and one of them was, I just really couldn't get on with him. His way of teaching was to put people down if they did something wrong. So if I don't know, if you did something wrong, he would say, "What are you doing? Why have you done that? Don't be an idiot." You know, instead of, what I prefer is, okay, right, instead of doing that, why don't you try doing it this way? Okay, I can get on with that. Now, it got to the point where I was cancelling lessons because I just couldn't deal with the instructor. Now, unfortunately, the instructor that I had at the time was dismissed for whatever reason, so I got a new instructor and I got on far better with him and got progressed much more quickly. And obviously that's part of the key, saving money and progressing well. So pick your instructor wisely. So that is pretty much it. We'll go now into the actual course of the PPL and how they do it. So first of all, you're going to have your discovery flight. That's where you jump in the plane, they take you up, mess around for a bit and see if you actually like it. Now, flying is not natural, so it's not for everyone. Even if you think, yeah, it looks great, it might not be for you. So have that trial flight first and then decide if you can do it. Once you've decided, yes, I'm going to fly, you need to buy some things. Now, you don't have to buy it all straight away, but you do need a headset, you do need a flight bag, a ruler, protractor, map pens, and I think that's it. A knee board is always handy, but the instructor will go over these things with you. So the structure of the PPL course is they will start off teaching you the basics of climbs, descents, turns, straight and level flight. Then you'll start to move on to engine failures and landing without flaps. Flaps are used for pretty much every landing, so if the flaps fail, how to land without that. And basically what they're doing is they're getting you ready to fly on your own. So they will not let you go solo until they know you can handle the aircraft nicely and you can handle an emergency if it was to happen when you're on your own. So that shouldn't take very long, 10 to 15 hours usually, but don't hold me to that, but that's generally what I've seen. So then you'll be doing your circuits one day, and then the instructor will tell you to land after a circuit, park up at the tower. He'll jump out and say, right, go do a couple on your own. Now a lot of people are terrified of solo. Personally, I couldn't wait, but you know, as soon as the instructor said I'm going, I said, hurry up then, get out, and I went off on my own. It was great. It's I can understand why it can be daunting, but it is very nice. It can be very nice to you have the quiet. You don't have anyone who's going to tell you off, because really, well, number one, you're not doing anything wrong. Number two, there's no one there to tell you off. There's no one there saying, oh, you're a little bit high, you're a little bit low. You find that when you're flying the plane, you're watching everything anyway, so you spotted it, you've gone, oh, I am a little bit high, need to drop down a bit, or whatever it is. So that's that. You've got the solo, and then after you've done the solo, you've got to do roughly 10 hours of just circuit training, so that's takeoffs and landings, 10 hours logged time. Now, one thing I didn't mention was that if you have a small airfield like Derby, the runway isn't long enough for touch and goes. Touch and go is where you land and then take off without taxiing off the runway. Now, but the runway isn't long enough at Derby, so you have to land and then taxi back to the start of the runway and then take off again. So obviously that's going to take more time. You might get, I don't know, 5 takeoffs and landings done at Derby in an hour, where you might get 7 or 8 touch and goes at another airport. So that's something to think about. So once you've done the solo, or they might incorporate it just to break it up a bit, they might stick it in between your 10 hours of solo flying, you'll be doing navigation. Navigation is, for me, was daunting, and it was the bit that I struggled on. You'll find most people will find a point of flying that they struggle on. That's why the minimum of 45 hours flying is a minimum. I have seen maybe 2 people do it in the 45 hours, but they've been extremely wealthy and they've had a mum or a dad with their pilot's license and a plane, so they can practice whenever they want. But yeah, the 45 hours is hard to meet. You've also got exams. You've got 9 written exams, and I say written exams, they're actually done on a computer, but this multiple choice, you just need to learn your stuff, memorize it all, and then get to it. You have 5 sittings to do all 9 exams, and that includes retests. So if you fail one, you're gonna have to do it in another sitting, which is a pain in the bum. So I was doing 3 tests at a time. Yeah, and that's how it works. You've got 3 chances. If you fail a test 3 times, you can still do it, but they take you down to the big boys down at Gatwick Airport, and you're sat in front of basically a panel of judges. They watch you do the test, and you have to do it there. You also need a medical before you go flying. You can go flying on lessons without a medical, but you will need it before you go solo. Okay, so solo navigation, they will send you on navigation flights. They will teach you how to plot a route. The instructor will be with you. You fly here, there, wherever. Then he will get you to fly to another airport and land, and then take off and fly back. Bear in mind that you will have to pay the landing fee. Now, it's not much, it's about £20 for a landing fee, but no one told me that. So when I did my first land away navigation flight, we stood there at reception looking at each other, and he said, "What are you going to pay?" You know, well, I thought it was part of the lesson, but no. Luckily they took cards, so I was able to pay. So after these navigation lessons are getting you ready for your qualifying cross country, and that is a solo flight where you have to take off and land at 2 airfields other than your home airport. So you'll plot a route going from home to another airfield to another different airfield and then back home. Now this is what this flight I'm doing now is. This is my first leg of that flight, where I flew from home to Gloucester via Wolverhampton, and then I flew on to Leicester after that and back home. But this is the bit that scared me the most. I thought, a long flight to do, I've got no instructor with me. If something goes wrong, I'm either going to look like an idiot or I'm just going to panic and get completely lost. It is not that hard, to be fair. It's really easy. I find it easier than the lessons, because your plane is empty. You can take anything you want with you. Most of the aircraft now have onboard GPS, which you are allowed to use. You don't have to stick to the maps. I took my phone and my tablet, which both had Skydemon on them. That's worth looking up if you're going to look to fly. Basically follows your route all the way there. It tells you everything that's in the way, airspace, pylons, whatever you need to know. That's what all that binging was when I took off. Skydemon running in the background. So yes, you've got the navigation flights will lead to that qualifying cross country, and that is a requirement for your PPL. It's almost like a test, but it's not quite a test, if you know what I mean, because there's no one actually watching you. They give you the keys one day, off you go, come back when you're done. Then you may start to learn little bits of instrument stuff, which is very basic but needed. If you fly into a cloud, show you how to get out of it safely, because it's not as simple as keep flying or I'll just turn around. Your body is, because you can't see what's going on outside, your body teaches you to trust it. So you're going by feeling. If you feel like you're going up or down, the aircraft might not be going up or down, might just be speeding up or slowing down. So you don't want to react in the wrong way. You just have to trust your instruments. Always trust your instruments until you can see outside. So once you've done that, you will then redo some of the earlier stuff, like engine failures, stalls, steep turns, whatever, which is all in the beginning of the basics before you go solo. Now you just, at this point, once you've done your qualifying cross country, you are brushing up on absolutely everything, and then you can start chucking it all together, and that will be brushing up for your test. Bear in mind, your test will be probably about 2 hours. You will have to pay for the lesson and the examiner, so it's not the price of a standard lesson. Okay, the test, it will take you out. You need to know about the aircraft you're flying. He's going to ask you loads of questions on the plane, sort of weird things, oil usage, how magnetos work, stuff like that. It's all confusing stuff, but you need to know it. And then he'll just do basic stuff like you've been doing in your lessons, takeoffs, landings, stalls, you know, all stuff. That all is going to be stuff you're comfortable with, and you'll have to do your navigation section with a map and a diversion as well while you're mid-flight. So we might do this route that I'm doing, Wolverhampton and Gloucester, but at some point he will say, right, bad weather ahead, divert to whatever airport. You need to look at your map, think, right, I'm here, turn around, I'll go that way and land at this airport. He won't make you land there, he will just say, right, okay, that's what I wanted you to do, go back and we'll do some flapless landings or whatever. But it's not that bad. I think that is about it. I haven't done this. I haven't done a script for this, so it's just all off the top of my head. So, yes, that's pretty much it. Okay, right. I hope that's been helpful to some people. It's certainly a few things that no one told me that I'd wish I'd known, especially the stuff about picking your instructor and airfield correctly. But hopefully this helps, so thanks for watching. I'll see you again.